Welcome everybody to the Monday Embarcadero Community Webcast. I'm David I. It's Monday, January 19th, 2015. Let's get started with this week's webcast. Here's the Embarcadero Community homepage. I use this each week as the starting point for looking at upcoming events, news, articles, blogs, and answers to your questions. This week we also have an interview with Carrie, Jensen, and Loy Anderson from Jensen Data Systems to talk about Delphi Developer Days. They happen to be stopping by Scotts Valley, California in our offices, so I took the opportunity to ask them some questions about things that they were working on and the upcoming Delphi Developer Days. So stay tuned for that near the end of this webcast. On the news page of the Embarcadero community site, you'll see some of the new postings that are put up by employees about news items. One was about the developer survey that we recently did on the Internet of Things. More about that in a moment. We also do monthly news flash newsletters. One for our developer tools customers using Red Studio, Delphi C++ Builder, and App Method, and one for our database tools users, the database news flash. So take a look at those. Sometimes our news gets picked up by other websites and magazines. The SD Times picked up the story on developers are rethinking user experience for IoT, and the survey with a nice quote from John Thomas, our Senior Director of Developer Tools, Product Management, Product Marketing. We've been covering devices, gadgets, and wearables throughout the last couple of years in online events, live events, webinars, blog posts, and videos. This year we're going to spend even more time focused on the wide range of parts and pieces of the Internet of Things. The newsletters, here's the January RAD News Flash newsletter. It's available on the community site, and if you've subscribed to our emails, then you'll get an email with all of these items in it once a month. And again, it has information about special offers, upgrade pricing, upcoming events, articles, and other kinds of information of use for the developer tools customers of ours. And the same thing for the database news flash. You can always find these under the articles news menu. And here again about upcoming webinars, white papers, special offers, on-demand videos, and what's happening in the community for data modelers, database developers, and for database administrators. We have a couple upcoming weekly events starting this week. Tomorrow is the first of the 2015 Q1 or first quarter developer skill sprints. Every Tuesday at 6 a.m., 11 a.m., and 5 p.m. we'll have a new skill sprint that covers the wide range of capabilities for Rad Studio XE7. You'll find upcoming events on the homepage of the Embarcadero community, and then you can click on the heading of upcoming events and get a more complete list of upcoming events throughout the quarter and throughout the year. Each of the calendar events include a Register Now button that you can click on that'll take you to additional information. Here's a list of the starting skill sprints for this quarter. Tomorrow, January 2nd, on Tuesday, Serena is going to cover building native multi-device apps, including support for the new iPhone 6 and 6 Plus form factors using Fire UI. And then we have additional topics listed, as well as some to be announced during the month of March. Also, each Friday, starting this Friday, we're going to have a Technology Partner Spotlight webinar each Friday at 6 a.m. and 11 a.m., so you can register for those. Here again is the landing page for registration. We've got Ray Konopka from Ray's Software this week. Next Friday, we'll have the Developer Express talking about their VCL controls, and then the following Friday, TMS software, and then some more technology partner spotlights to be announced. So stay tuned to this landing page, but you only have to register once for a series, choosing the session that you want, and then you'll get reminders for each Friday's session throughout the quarter. On the blogs area of the Embarcadero community, we've got some highlighted bloggers, and then you can go down and view all of them. You can also go to the blog's landing page and get most recent blog posts with articles of interest to both developers and database users. One I want to highlight, I talked about SD Times picking up the article. Brian Alexakis, who's a product marketing manager in the developer group, he also wrote about this survey that came out last week. And you can go to his blog, and there's a link down here at the bottom to get the results of the survey. Here's my blog, and I just wanted to highlight that each week when I do the community webcast, I also put up a blog post the same day with links to the topics that are covered in each of the weekly webcasts. Jim McKeith is also blogging. He uses the podcast at Delphi.org, and his blog posts appear on the community blog site. He did a recap last week of this annual tradition of putting hashtag code and then the year to tell everyone what programming language you use throughout the year, and the results are tabulated. And here are some of the languages that people were using in the year 2014. JavaScript number 1, closely followed by Java, Python, SQL, and so on. Delphi appears here. C++ and C are still used. Also in the Embarcadero community, there's an answer area. The answers area is where developers post questions about database topics, programming topics, specific components and functionality, and then members of our community as well as members of our company post replies to customers. I worked on a few answers that I saw over the weekend and posted replies this morning. Let's see, Luca was asking about advice on receiving push notifications. He was having a little trouble figuring out how to use some of the backend as a service systems, or how to do push notifications to Android and iOS. So I gave him links to some of the DocWiki information. We did a RAD in Action backend as a service session last year. Jeff Lefebvre did a Code Rage 9 session about using Google Cloud Messaging specifically in a Delphi app, and there's a video replay link there. And Serena DuPont did a whole series of backend as a service blog posts and tutorials, and she's got an article she put up that links to many of those. This is that link here where she shows you how to use backend storage, push triggers, remote push, and other things using backend as a service. So it's a whole great series that works with Delphi, C++ Builder, RAD Studio, App Method, XE6 and XE7 for the developer tools that App Method releases since the beginning of App Method. Joseph asked a question about grid panel layout, and he was wondering if rowspan was working or not. He had put a grid panel layout component on a form, and he set rowspan value, and he said the layout and the ID looks good, but when he ran it on an Android target, he said it didn't recognize rowspans. And I went and built a sample application. I dropped a grid panel and an image and button on the first row. The grid panel layout created 2 columns and 2 rows. I then ran that on my Samsung Galaxy S4, and the display was the same in the designer and on my phone. I didn't do anything special with special properties. I only went in and followed the instructions on the DocWiki for setting the row span of the control collection, so that I could align a button to be 2 rows of my grid panel. So here's the picture of the IDE. I started by putting an image in row 1, column 1, and then a button in row 1, column 2. And then I set row span for the button so that it spanned across row 1 and row 2 in the second column. I did that by choosing the control collection, the control item for the second control, which is the button, and I set row span to 2. And then the output is here on my Samsung Galaxy S4, showing the button occupying 2 rows of the right-hand column and the image in the 1 row. Let me switch to my IDE, and again, here's the grid panel layout, and I select this item. I set row span to 2. That caused the button. If I set this to 1, you'll see that the button moves back. If I set it to 2, then the button spans across the 2 rows in the right-hand column. And then when I run this application on Android, here's my Samsung Galaxy S4, you'll see that I've got this is the application running live on my Samsung Galaxy S4. I'm using Jim McKeith's Android Screen View application. So here's the IDE, and here's the Samsung Galaxy S4. Going back to Joseph's question, I couldn't find any issue, but maybe Joseph will reply saying that he got it to work now as well, or he'll tell me maybe it's a different Android phone that he's targeting with a different resolution that's causing some issue. Then I just want to point everybody to Jim McKeith's Android Screen View. It's a Delphi app that he built that uses the ADB API interface for grabbing screens from an Android device. So you can go and look at that article, and you can go and get the source code from Google Code, and you can download the built version of the screen view as a 7-zip file, and that's what I was using. Let's see. Jason was asking about general approach to validation routines for unit testing involving dialogues. And I wasn't sure exactly what Jason was asking here in the sense that he showed an example of message dialogue, and it's hard to do UI testing in a unit test. Unit tests are normally meant to be part of an automated build and test process where there's no human interaction. He does test to see if a value is within range in his application sample that he gave us. So what I said here was unit tests really nothing to do with displaying message dialogue. Message dialogue doesn't have any input, so it's really not part of a testable interface. Really, you should be writing a unit test that tests that value to make sure it's between 0 and 100, and then output a failed or passed test. At the same time, if what he needed to do was to automate some values, you can have unit tests that read data from a file and output results to a file. If you're thinking about something that needs input, simulating a user, and output of the result going back. And I put a link. I forgot to make it a clickable link. So let's copy that, and let's go in and edit my reply, and we'll go in and highlight this URL, which is the unit testing overview in the DocWiki, and let's go and make that a clickable link and save it back. So Jason, I hope that gives you a little bit of information or guidance, but if you need more, just let us know. Steve was asking. He said his combo box had the right look on iOS and Android in OS 10, but it wasn't for looking correctly on Windows. And Serena replied saying that she was unable to reproduce the issue on her end using both native styles and premium styles. She says if you've created several views, it's important to set the platform-specific style on each view, and she recommends checking to make sure that you have the right style associated for each of the target platforms that you're doing. And Steve replies, "Thanks for your help, and you were right. I had all sorts of styles for iOS and Android, but didn't put one for Windows. Now that I've loaded the Windows one, guess what? It works as expected." So again, just a reminder, if you're building a multi-device, multi-target application for different platforms, that you select the correct styles that you want to use versus the default normal styles that'll come with each platform. Luca also asked about, he wanted to get access to the user's calendar on Android and iOS, and we don't currently have components for calendar and so on, but there's some wrappers that are out there, and I put links to FMX Express where he has an example code for doing calendar access and wrapping the interface for Android. And then there's a set of components for iOS that also has some nice, easy calendar and contacts and other parts of iOS component wrappers of the APIs. So you can do it by wrapping the APIs yourself or using components and samples that are out there by members of the community. As I mentioned at the beginning, Kari, Jensen, and Loy Anderson from Jensen Data Systems came by our offices last Friday in Scotts Valley, and I had the chance to spend some time with them. So let's take a listen and watch as I talk with Kari and Loy about Jensen Data Systems, about some of the work that Kari's been doing, and the upcoming Delphi Developer Days 2015 with Ray Konopka. So for the first time in our community podcast events, I've got some guests in the studio here in Scotts Valley, and something I hope to do either when visitors are coming to see us or via Skype or other online means to talk to different members of the community and technologists and luminaries. And in this case, I've got MVP Kari Jensen and Loy Anderson are here with me today.
Hi, David.
Hi, David.
Yeah, it's great to have you both here in Scotts Valley in our studio here. And you're the first official guests on the Embarcadero Community Podcast.
It's our honor.
Thank you.
Okay. So today I've got some pages here. I want to talk about some of the things that are going on in the world of Delphi as well as in the world of Jensen Data Systems. Here's the homepage for them. JensenDataSystems.com is pretty easy to find out all sorts of things that are going on in the world of Delphi and also in the world of Carrie and Loy. So you can see the different links here: training business, consulting business, books, events, where you're traveling in the world, right?
Yes, and we also do Delphi development. That's been a very significant part of our offerings, and it's also important from the standpoint that as a trainer, I'm not just a trainer. I am a developer first and foremost. I am training from experience.
Do you also look at people's user experience and designs and interfaces? Because I know you both have PhDs and you've looked at all of those areas in depth in your expertise as well.
Well, our PhDs are in engineering psychology, which takes into account the perceptual and cognitive capabilities of the user in the design of interfaces and systems. But no, that's not what we specialize in. It's really software development, training developers, consulting on development projects, giving advice and guidance to our clients. The formal training is very useful from a standpoint of understanding how systems and people interact, but we don't specifically do human factors engineering.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to highlight is Carrie was involved in the recent last year, Code Rage 9, and I point to two sessions that Carrie did. One session on comparison of client data sets and FDMEM tables, and the second one was nested data sets and client data sets. It's always great to have some of our luminaries giving talks at the annual Code Rage. I know you do a lot of in-person events as well.
That's right. But Code Rage is a great event. We miss the old live Borland conferences and Code Rage conferences.
I do too. Yeah.
But Code Rage is a wonderful opportunity. Not only are we presenting material, but this material persists forever, basically, on YouTube, so that developers, even developers who haven't yet come to Delphi, can go out and see this material. With respect to the client data sets, this is actually, I think, the fifth or sixth session at Code Rage that I've done on client data sets. And my thought there was we create a nice, continuous series of presentations that capture the richness and the variation of the client data set.
Carrie also was involved, and this was a great, I think it was October 2013, I think it was. It was the No App is an Island. It was really about FireDAC. It was a webinar, white paper, and I point people to that. It's a great introduction. And, of course, we've done even more with FireDAC over time. So I just want to point to it. And also you can see what Carrie looks like because it's got his picture twice on that page.
Yeah, that's what I looked like 15 years ago.
Oh, okay. And then also there's a Developer Network article about migrating legacy. Carrie did another event several years ago, but it's still important today for people who are migrating their applications from older versions of Delphi, Delphi 7, or what I would say the pre-Unicode or crossing the Unicode chasm. Can we steal from Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, sort of paraphrasing that maybe?
Yeah, really, going from Delphi 2007 or earlier to Delphi 2009 and later.
And that's two things, boy. There's still the on-demand video. If you're looking to move forward and you're on older versions, it's a great resource. There's also a white paper where you talk to a lot of developers and gathered information about what people were doing as they were trying to migrate.
That's right. When I was asked to do the white paper, the question was, well, you've helped a lot of people migrate. And I said, but I'm a database developer primarily. And there's a lot of other issues that come up in Unicode migration that aren't related to databases. In some cases, the migration is effortless. It's a recompile. So what I proposed was I would reach out to the Delphi community and ask, well, actually more broadly, the RAD Studio community, and ask, what is your experience? And I talked to frontline developers. I talked to third-party vendors, such as Ray Konopka from Ray Software. and others, and asked them what their experience was in the migration. And I got incredible feedback, and I had more than 25 contributors, and I took their collective experience and I was able to break it down into 7 areas of concern. And then I shared their specific experiences. Some were very inspiring. They said, look, we designed our software correctly originally, and we used the constructs in the product. And when we went to flip the switch to Unicode, it just worked. And others had the horror stories of, well, in the early development, we were really trying to leverage speed, and we did these various hacks, and we paid the price for that. So it was a wonderful experience for me, and I think that the white paper captures the process. And hopefully, if you haven't yet migrated your legacy projects, that the white paper will give you a lot of insight into where you can turn your attention, and then hopefully your migration will go very easily.
And then sort of following on from the sessions that you've been doing over the different code ranges on client data set, there's a new second edition of Delphi In-Depth Client Datasets with a foreword by Marco Cantu that's just out. It was published on January 7th, right?
Yes, this is I've been for some time intending to update the code samples for the book. With the release of Delphi XE7, the BDE no longer ships with the product, and my original samples were you could run with the Delphi install that you made. You could take these samples and run them immediately, but they did use the old Borland database engine and paradox tables. With XE7, and I've been intending to update to a different database, 2 things coincided: the release of XE7 without the BDE and the newly introduced FireDAC data access framework in Delphi allowed me to create a series of duplicate projects and some enhanced projects using FireDAC and Interbase, and they are runnable out of the box as long as you're using Delphi XE5 and later. And when I went to that process of updating those code samples, I recognized that there were some additional features, things like live bindings and the field options properties introduced to T-Dataset in Delphi XE6. And I thought, this is a time, especially because client dataset is now feature complete, and the future emphasis in memory tables will be the FDMEM table. I thought this is a great time to update for one final time Delphi in-depth client datasets, and this is the result.
And it's available as a printed book and also an ebook. So the links are there on the page, and I'll make sure to get those in the blog post that will accompany this Embarcadero news and events podcast.
One thing I do want to
go ahead.
I want to point out, because we have Loy Anderson, who's my partner at Jensen Data Systems and also my wife. Loy Anderson, who's the editor, both the copy editor and production editor of this book. She also designed the cover, and I want to give a nod to that. But I'm very pleased how the book looks.
And you both have written other books together in the days of JBuilder books, Kylix and Linux book. Maybe as we get Linux server support into the future, maybe you'll come back into the world of Linux as well.
That's right. Loy and I have co-authored, I think, 22 books.
So let me turn over to you, Loy, and I've brought up the Delphi Developer Days. This is an annual, really intense 2-day training. Let me turn it over to you for a moment and tell people about 2015 Delphi Developer Days.
Delphi Developer Days is an annual training tour on Delphi where we have 2 speakers. In the past, we've had Marco Cantu along with Carrie Jensen, and last year we had Bob Swart and Carrie Jensen, and in 2015 we have Ray Konopka. And if you've ever heard Ray speak, he's an excellent speaker and he's an absolute guru on Delphi, and really specializes in component development. This year, our tour is going to 4 cities. We're starting in Chicago in April, on April 13th and 14th, and then we'll be in Amsterdam the 23rd and 24th, and then we'll be in Oslo, Norway, and we'll finish up in Frankfurt on May 11th and 12th. Delphi Developer Days, it's a combination between a training event and a mini conference. We try to keep it small enough so that people can interact and still ask questions of Ray, Knopka, and Kari, but have enough people to network. We get people coming in from, in the U.S., all different states, and Canada. In Europe, we get people from all different countries, occasionally from the U.S. flying to Europe as well. So we'll get a mix of people coming to the events, and it makes it a nice, intimate atmosphere.
And it's really intensely focused. It's for a small group. This isn't like trying to train 200 people in a huge ballroom somewhere. It's really, you keep them small so that there's massive time that you and Ray are spending with these attendees, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And it goes for 2 days. You get the presentations. You get a book. It's really a book.
It's really a book.
It's not like these handouts that they kind of collate together. It's it's a perfect bound book. I have several of them in my office. Big, thick, rich, access to all the samples that you guys use. And then in the U.S., Jim McKeith is going to show up. We usually do an evening between the 2 days, and I think we've had Marco and other people before as well. I've been to a few of them. It's intense. For 2 days, sometimes you do presentations together. Sometimes you split up, right, and do topics.
We do about half of our presentations together, and that's really fun because me and the co-speaker, Bob Swart was speaking for the last 2 years, but Bob is taking a travel sabbatical for the first half of this year, and we are so very grateful to have Ray Knopka step in and participate. Ray and I have known each other for more than 20 years, but with the co-speaker, it's when we're doing the joint presentations, it's really a give and take. We both can give our perspectives on a particular topic and work off of each other as well as the audience. We love the interaction with the audience, but we also have sessions where we break out into two separate rooms, and half of the attendees might go in one room and half the other room. It really depends on, you get to choose which talk you want to see, and then we really try to have a variety of in-depth topics in those breakout sessions. Of course, because you can't go to all of the sessions, that's why we have the book. The last couple of years, the book's been 450 pages in length, and it is like a book you would buy on Amazon. It's not slides, it's narrative. It goes into details. There's a lot of code in it, but you download all of the code samples from the site that we give to our attendees. But you have all the content. So if you choose to listen to Ray's talk and you miss mine, you've got my paper.
There's some sessions like at the welcome in the beginning where you're together, and then you break out into the different rooms and then come back together each day and then have Q&A right at the end of the day.
There's Q&A at the end of each day. And then there's also at the very end of our last session, which follows Q&A, is our tips and tricks session. And that's been a very, very popular session where me and my co-presenter go in and find those little gems, maybe things you've never heard of, or things or techniques that you haven't thought of how to apply a certain way. And then we share that. That's always a lot of fun.
I'll go back to the Jensen Data Systems page. Again, if you're looking for training, if you're looking for consulting, mentoring, development, all the links and resources are there on jensendatasystems.com, including the links that I use to get to some of these other pages further down on the homepage. Loy and Carrie, it's great to have you here in Scotts Valley. It's great to have this chance to record this little bit for the Embarcadero Community Podcast. And thank you again very much.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you, David.
Okay, that's it for this week's webcast for the Embarcadero Community. I'm David I, and we'll see you next Monday.